Finally gonna be able to get my vacuum seeder out this morning. I've got some broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale. Need to sow kohlrabi, but the seed hasn't come. And I've got a little bit of flowers to do. I think just a couple of colors of bacopa. This is the soil that I've talked about before. Carolina's Choice Tobacco Mix, Carolina Soil Company, down in Kinston. But this is what I use for seed starting. This is super fine potting soil mix. It's not, I mean, it's formulated to go in float trays in a tobacco greenhouse, which if you ain't from North Carolina or around here pretty close, you probably don't know anything about tobacco. But it's not ideal for just a regular growing media. Right here, some asparagus ferns that are planted in that tobacco mix. And I mean, I've got good healthy roots. They're growing great. But it's just not, it don't drain quite as well. So it's not the best thing for just a standard growing media, but for seed starting, it is phenomenal. Right here is what we're working with, what I started a couple of weeks ago, and you see I've got real consistent germination. There's some bald spots in the trays, but that's because we left those out. There's different varieties with gaps in between them. Real consistent germination. Tickled to death with that. Even this verbena, which supposedly supposed to be real finicky about moisture. It's kind of hard to get started according to the ball book, what I read. But they're not all green and open yet, but just about every single one of them is up. So I'm pretty tickled with that. But I'm gonna get my vacuum cleaner out and get my seeder out, and we'll see if we can't get some seeds sown. This is kind of my maiden voyage on seeding all these small seeded flowers. This is 100 bacopa seeds, if that gives you any idea of the size of them. So if that was a pelleted tomato seed, probably wouldn't get but 5 or 6 seeds in that space where 100 of these are. But this, assuming that the wheels don't come off and this seeding experiment goes well and I'm able to do a good job on these flowers, I'm gonna have to invest next year in some sort of either modify a plate for my homemade vacuum seeder, or buy a vacuum seeder with a plate that's meant to seed these minute flower seeds, because this hand seeding thing ain't gonna work on a large scale. Crazy thing about these tiny bacopa seeds is bacopa apparently has germination issues. They struggle to come up, so they do what they call a multi-pelleted seed, or a multi-seed pellet. So there's multiple seeds per pellet to aid in germination. There's several flowers like that. I've got something else over here that's that way. I believe it was portulaca is a multi-pelleted, but that's just wild that there's 2 or 3 seeds in one of these tiny pellets. I got my seeds all separated out so that I don't open a new pack when I've got an old pack that's open. I just got a bunch of new seed in, but I'm gonna try to wrap up some of this leftover stock, like this old Fletcher broccoli, try to plant it out before I jump on my new bag of Emerald Crown. I really like Emerald Crown, but for this first planting of broccoli, it's going to be super early. We typically like to plant our broccoli, depending on the weather, about the last week of February. So Fletcher should be fine. It should come off before we turn too hot. So, but first thing I'm going to start with is some Georgia collards. After doing all that hand seeding, I'm really glad to be getting back to my good old vacuum seeder. If you've never grown curly kale and you are raising produce, I highly recommend it. This is a variety called Blue Ridge. I don't know that it's any better or any worse than anything else, but it's a pretty solid curly kale. Started growing it last year, first time we ever grew it. I would have never believed how good this stuff sells. In the spring when we got strawberries and spring crops are coming in, we about can't keep this in stock. It's like everybody that comes in and gets a bucket of strawberries gets a bundle of kale, and you have virtually nothing in it. The seeds are cheap, don't take up much space, don't take any time to pick it. That's a good one. Seems like produce business is pretty regional. Like there's certain things that we grow that only people around here will buy, like a half runner green bean. Most people don't even know what a half runner green bean is, except for northwestern North Carolina up into the mountains. Half runner green beans sell, and some people, once you get further up into the mountains, you can't hardly give away a snap bean. They all want half runners. This right here is another one of those regional things. It's a sharp-headed cabbage, early Jersey Wakefield. It's not your typical round cabbage. It goes up to a point. Some people love it, some people wouldn't give you a nickel for it. I don't grow a ton of this. Most of our cabbage is like a round storage cabbage, but I'm gonna do some of the sharp head and some of the red. I've got lines on this cedar so that I can plant part of a variety and part of another variety. So I'll show you how I do that. Works out pretty good. So I'm not real sure how I feel about the vermiculite yet, but this is my first time using it. A lot of people use it. Most seed starting places use it. So on things that are supposed to be covered, that is. Normally, if I'm doing a test, I like to change one thing at a time, and I'm totally blowing that out of the water here because I've never used heat mat and started seeds in the greenhouse before, and I've never used vermiculite before. But we'll see. Hopefully I get perfectly consistent germination on all of this stuff. We'll see how that goes. I'm finally getting into some stuff that I'm familiar with. These flowers, this is breaking new ground for me. I've never started my own flower seed plugs before, but vegetables, I've always grown my own vegetables. So we're gonna see how this goes, how the germination does on those. This is a Wonder Water I was talking about a couple videos back. And I've got it turned down really, really low. I don't know how good you can tell, but it's a super fine, gentle rain, so to speak. And it works really good. You can actually turn it down a little bit more. See how when you turn it down, it doesn't turn into a stream like a lot of other things will. The vermiculite is supposed to keep a real consistent moisture level right where the seed is. That's the purpose of it, to aid in germination. So, I mean, I don't see how it could be a bad thing. It's not very expensive. It's easy to come by. But you see how that vermiculite is super light, and it's easy to, it's real fluffy, so it'd be easy to beat it around. You see this Wonder Water is not really even moving it. See, it works really well. I was going to show y'all my vacuum seeder. This is a homemade unit. It's nothing special about it at all. You can make your own. It'd be tough if you didn't have access. When I built this, I worked in a metal fab shop, so that made it a little easier. But I have since taken a tray that was already made, didn't have any holes in it, and ordered some wire sized drill bits off Amazon to drill the holes with, and it was very time consuming and slow, but it will work. But this is basically like one of the vacuum seeders you would buy from Johnny Seeds. So I just got, I mean, you could use any shop vac, but it's just got a ball valve here so that you can adjust your vacuum, and that really helps with singulation. If you turn your vacuum down a little bit, keep from sucking too many seeds or whatever. You might have saw me doing that. It's got a little tray here that catches the seeds, so when I turn it over, all the seeds run into there, and I can flip it and flip it back over, and it keeps all the seeds in there. It's actually got a few seeds in there caught in the spider web. This has been a game changer. We used to seed all of our vegetables by hand, so you had a lot of time involved in that. And with this, I don't know how long it took me, 15 minutes at the most. I just seeded 4,000 brassicas, so big time saver. Well, I guess that's about gonna do it for this video. I appreciate y'all watching, and if there's anything you got any questions about that I didn't answer, drop them in the comments. If you hadn't subscribed yet, I'd appreciate it if you'd do that, and I will see you next time.